All right, so I think we are ready to get started here. So good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Cougar Mountain Denali Payroll webinar series for April 16th, 2014. We're going to be doing, our webinar is going to be about a half hour today. We're going to have about 15 or 20 minutes of the presentation and then 10 to 15 minutes to answer any questions. If you have any questions that you would like to ask, just go ahead and type those into your chat and we'll get those questions answered at the end of the webinar for you. All right, my name is Jeremy Beislein. I am a trainer here at Cougar Mountain. I'll be presenting this webinar for us today here. And today's agenda, we're going to continue on our payroll processing from last week. Basically, we're going to finish up the payroll processing. The bulk of it's pretty much done when you enter all of the transaction information. And then we just go through and verify the transactions, print your paychecks and your check register reports, print your pre-posting reports and your EFTPS reports. Then we process direct deposits, and then finally we post your payroll transactions for your payroll run. All right, so with that, we'll go ahead and get started here. Go ahead and bring up our Denali Payroll here. Now last week we started here by entering our payroll information for the current batch. And of course we'll just bring that up here to continue on from where we were left off last week. Okay, so we started off last week here with entering payroll information. All right, and this is the current batch of payroll transactions we have here. Let me know if you're not able to see me now. You should be able to see my screen now. So type in the chat if you're not able to see me here. All right, looks like we finally got it. I just forgot to unpause the screen there, so sorry about that. Okay, so we'll start over here. Okay, so last week we entered all of our payroll information. We entered the total units for each employee. These are each of the paychecks here, total units, gross pay, deductions, taxes, and net pay. And then scrolling down to the bottom of our list here. And then at the very bottom here, we've got our totals. We've got 15 transactions in the current batch. We've got total units, 1,200, gross pay, 21,472.16, deductions, taxes, and net pay. This row here at the bottom is a quick overview of your total payroll for this payroll run. That's a quick way to verify if you've got the numbers right or not. If this number, your gross pay, is like in the millions where it should be in the thousands, this would be a quick way to verify that just by looking at that bottom row there. So with that, then we move on to our next step, and it's simply done just by clicking the next button here on our screen. When we click on the next button, this brings us to the next step in our navigation. We started here with entering the payroll information. Now we are moving on to our next step, to verify the accuracy of our payroll. And the accuracy of our payroll is verified through our transaction edit report. So we'll run this report here. This is a list of all of the current transactions. This is the report that the payroll manager can run before posting the transactions into the final history. This brings up our transaction report here. This lists up all of the transactions. We start with the first transaction to Sabrina Goodnight. She's our employee. And as you can see, it lists all of the different pay rates here, the different hours for these pay rates. These other times would be your overtime pay. We don't have any for this employee here. Then we have our columns here. We have all of our taxes that are deducted from the employee's pay, all the employer taxes here in the next column. The third column is all of our benefits and deductions for this paycheck, and the fourth column is all of our regular pay and all of our different pays for this paycheck. We've got our total gross earnings here at the bottom, total employee deductions, and the net pay. And then you move on down to the next transaction. You can review each transaction individually this way before finalizing your current batch. Once we've reviewed the edit report, then we click Next to move on to the next step, which is the next step in our list here, is to print the checks. Now this is where you print all of your paychecks for the current payroll batch. You can select individual paychecks to print here by double-clicking on the transaction number and just pull out which paycheck you want to print if you want to do just 1 or 2 checks out of the current batch, or you can leave that blank and just go start to end. You can also print checks by check location as set up in the employee maintenance screen, or by the department as set up in the department codes. You can print checks that have not yet previously printed, or you can print checks that you've already printed in this batch if you need to reprint any checks, or you can just simply say, let's print all checks in the current batch based on these parameters set above. You can tell Denali Payroll to print checks in order of employee, check location, or department. And that's the order that the checks will print. The next option is to actually print the checks or print direct deposit stubs. And of course, we probably want to do both, but you do one at a time here. So we do checks first. If you want to print the check number on the check, you go ahead and check this box. If not, you leave that blank. If you want to assign the check number, you check this box, and then you put the first check number that you're printing in your stack of checks here. You would enter that first check number here, put the checks in the printer, and then click OK, and it'll print out all of your checks beginning with this check number, and Denali Payroll will automatically assign the correct check number to the transaction, starting with this number. After we print checks, we come back and we print direct deposit stubs. If you want to print the check number on your direct deposit stub, you can select this box here or leave it blank if not, and then click OK, and that'll print the direct deposit stubs out of your printer. Once we've got our checks and our direct deposit stubs printed, then we move on to the next step, just by clicking Next. The next step is, of course, now we're moving on to our check register. This right here is a list of all the checks that have printed. Now, if you haven't printed any checks yet and you try to skip the print check section and you go to the check register, then you're going to get this report here that says no information matches the selected report since we haven't printed anything yet. Because on the last step, I went ahead and just said Next without clicking OK, since I don't want to actually print the checks for this demonstration. However, if you do print the checks, this report right here is your check register report that you use for your bank check register. It's a list of all the checks that printed and the check amount and the payee's name. Once we printed our check register, we just simply click Next and move on. Now this moves us down here to our next step, our pre-posting reports. This right here prints out a separate report for each one of your reports here as you have checked. If you don't want to print a specific report, you can uncheck the box here of the report you don't want to print. If you want to have each report on a separate page, you check this box here or uncheck it if you don't mind if they all come together on the same pages. With that, we can go ahead and bring up our pre-printing reports or pre-posting reports here. And then this starts right here. This is our additions report as labeled here at the top, additions. These are all the additions to gross pay that we added on the addition code that's set up in the benefit deduction code section. These are the benefits that we paid out for the employees. And this is shown by code. For the 401 benefit, this is a list of all employees we paid out for them. For the dental plan benefit, this is a list of all the employees we paid out for the dental plan that the company paid. These are the benefit codes. Moving on to the next page, we have our deduction codes. These are the deductions we took out of each employee's paycheck. Now this isn't your taxes, this is your other deductions, like your 401k deduction here. We took out of all of these employees, and this is the amount. Moving on, we've got our garnishment codes that we have set up. This is a report that shows all of the garnishments that we took out of the employees' checks. And then, of course, we have our tips report. That's our final report there, and then this is the report parameter summary here. Okay, so that is all of your pre-posting reports. Once we have those reports printed and good to go, we just move to the next. We click Next. One thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to stop. If you're in the middle of running a payroll batch and something comes up you have to go, you can simply cancel where you're at, and it just brings you back to the main window. Now when you sit back down to your computer, you can just click on the step you were at, and it just takes you right back where you were, and you can just resume what you were working on. Because everything is still saved in the current batch. We haven't posted anything or cleared anything out yet. So we just click Next, and we move on to our EFTPS report. This right here is the report of all the federal taxes that need to be paid for this payroll run to the IRS for your EFTPS payments. Now this report shows up here. It shows each individual employee listed as a separate line item here. Oops, I didn't want to do that. Let's go back here to our main report. It shows each employee listed separately here, and I did that again. As a separate line item, this is each paycheck. This is the different EFTPS taxes for these individual employees, as you can see separately here. And then at the bottom, we have our report totals here. This is the total Social Security, Medicare withholding taxes for the entire payroll run. And then you've got your unemployment tax separate. That's your 940 tax. These are 941 taxes over here. And then these are the grand totals for all federal taxes. Okay, so once we've got our EFTPS report done, one other option is if you don't need to list out each employee, you just want the totals for the batch, you can select the option there for report totals only, and this gives you just a very simplified report of just the totals without listing out all the employees. This is handy if you've got hundreds of employees that you're running payroll for, and all you need is the totals for this payroll run that you need to submit your EFTPS payments for. So we've got our EFTPS reports. We go on to the next step. The next step is here in the list, generate direct deposit transactions. So this is where we actually generate the direct deposit file to be transmitted to your bank so that you can process all of your employees who have your direct deposit, set up. And as we set it up in our module preferences, when you generate direct deposit transactions, it creates a file that you tell it where to save here. And in this case, we have it saving on our desktop, so we can find that file real easy and simply once we've generated our direct deposit transactions. So when we generate these transactions, we just simply click OK. All the information is already done. It's already entered in when we entered our payroll information up here. We just click OK, and Denali Payroll will generate that file for you automatically. Now that we've generated the file, then Denali Payroll will show us a report of all the direct deposit transactions that we just generated. And this report here, I'll show it to you on the screen. This is a report of all the direct deposit transactions that will go in for each employee. As we can see here, Kathy Janeway has 4 different bank accounts that we're splitting her paycheck up on. So we've got the 4 different direct deposits to the 4 different accounts here. Ty Kirk has 1 account. McCoy has the 2 accounts, and so forth. These are all the direct deposit transactions, and you can print this report for your records if needed. Now that we've generated our direct deposit transactions, then we come to our final step in the payroll process, and that is to post our payroll transactions. Before I do that, I just wanted to show you on the direct deposit real quick here. We go to our desktop. This is where we told it to save the file. Here's our direct deposit file right here. This file right here is what you would do with this, is you would log into your online banking system with your bank and transmit this file to your bank to process your direct deposit transactions. Once we've done that, everything is all ready to go. We've already gone through all the steps, verified accuracy, printed checks, printed our check register, printed our reports, our EFTPS, our direct deposit. Everything is good to go. The final step is we simply post. And you go ahead and click here. Now what this is telling me is, wait a minute, am I sure I want to post? I haven't printed checks yet. And the reason why is because I didn't tell it to print checks on the print check process. You will get this pop up if you did not print checks. If all of your checks are printed, this doesn't pop up. It'll go ahead and post. However, even though I didn't print checks, I have to assign a check number because normally that's done automatically when you print checks. Since we didn't do it, we have to assign the check number here. We can go ahead and do the check numbers at the posting process here. So we'll assign check number, let's go 02150, and I need to click on it for it to do it. And it's not letting me do it. Okay. Okay, so this is our posting report. All right, scratch that. You cannot assign the check numbers here on the posting report. You have to actually go here and assign those check numbers here, or print the checks and have it assign it there. So you can actually manually assign the check numbers by clicking Edit on the check number here on the header. And this is where you would put the check number in. However, when you're printing checks, if you actually process it and print the checks, starting with check number 1006 as we see here, I'm going to go ahead and say OK this time. That way it'll automatically assign those checks for me. So this will automatically put those check numbers in for me at the time of the printing. Now, since I told it to print, now my printer is probably going crazy printing all these checks. So now that that's done, now we can go ahead and post our transactions. And again, we're going to get the same error of direct deposit stubs that aren't printed. However, direct deposits have check numbers, so we're good to go. We can go ahead and post. And here we go. We are now posting. If there's any problems with the posting, we'll get a posting error, such as check numbers not assigned, for example. But since I went ahead and told it to print, those check numbers should now be assigned. We should not receive any posting errors here. And depending on how many payroll transactions you have, the posting process can take, several minutes. However, we've only got 15 transactions, so this should only take 1 or 2 minutes at the most. And with that, our posting is now complete. And just like the other Denali modules with Denali Payroll, you will get a posting report for each module that the Denali Payroll posted to. And of course, we start with our payroll module. This is our posting report to the payroll module here. These are all the transactions that posted to our payroll module, and these transactions were added to the payroll history for these employees. And you get your totals here. And you can print these reports out. Once we have our payroll posting, now we have an accounts payable posting report for the taxes. We'll take a look at that here. These are all of the accounts payable postings that posted through for this payroll batch to the accounts payable module. And the modules that it posts to depends on which modules you set the Denali Payroll to integrate with. Now that we've got accounts payable, we've got that posting report. Now we, of course, have our bank reconciliation posting. These are all the transactions that posted through to the bank reconciliation module. Okay, and we'll go to the last page here. Each posting report should also have a grand total at the bottom here. We have total checks, total deductions, that's your direct deposits, and grand total, net activity for the WAMU bank code, since that is our payroll account that we have set up in the bank reconciliation module. Now that we've got that one, we'll get another report. This is our general ledger posting report. This report right here is all of our debits and our credits to our chart of accounts in the general ledger for this payroll run. And since we have this set to detail, it should have a separate debit and credit for each transaction. And then at the bottom, this is page 5 here. Report totals didn't quite fit on page 5, so we go to page 6 to get our totals. Our total debits and our total credits. And the debits and credits should match, just like any other posting. And with that, we have now completed the payroll run. The payroll batch is now finished and posted, and all of our reports and accounts are updated. All right, so with that, I will open up the floor for questions now. Okay, good question from Roger. It says, when you edit the pay units, will it automatically recalculate the deductions that are pre-taxed? Yes, with Denali Payroll, you don't have to recalculate the taxes. If you edit the transaction, it automatically calculates the taxes as needed. Now keep in mind, if you edit the taxes and you check the box on the tax edit screen, that overrides the automatic calculation, and it'll keep the manual amount that you entered in when you edit the taxes. But if you don't edit the taxes, but you're just editing the pay or the units, then it'll automatically figure the taxes for you. Okay, this is another question we have here from Dick. He's asking, how do you enter the different types of PTO there? That's supposed to be done in the edit payroll screen for vacation, sick leave, or the different types of leave. Going back to our payroll here, I'll show you real quick where you would edit that. You should see my screen now. This is kind of a review from last week's that we were looking at. Okay, we posted our batch, so I guess I won't be able to show you without creating a new batch. I guess I can go ahead and do that real quick. Add to grid. Okay, so basically we're going to, if we bring up our current, one of our current employees here, right here you would do vacation units, right here you would do sick leave units. And if this employee had PTO, there would be a list here that says PTO units as well on this screen. This particular employee doesn't have PTO units, so it doesn't have that one listed. But this is where you do the different types of units when you're trying to enter what units this particular employee. You can also choose which department these units are entered in for up here on the pay rate. You can scroll through the different pay rates as well to determine which department they would go in, if the code doesn't have a department assigned to it already. All right, another good question from Dick. Can you add new employees to a batch that's already open? Yes, basically you've got your employees here. Now with this batch, I told it to do all employees. But if you wanted to add specific employees, we can start with this one here, and we'll add down to Carver here, add to grid. So now we've added just a few employees to our current payroll, but now let's say I want to add some more. You just repeat the process. You go up here and select which employee you want to add. Let's add Riker to the list. Select Riker to Riker. And then if we click Add to Grid, it'll add Riker to the current list that's already there. As you can see, it just added him there. That's how you would add additional employees to your current batch without starting a new batch. Okay, and a good question here from George. Can you change the employee's wage rate in the master file after the payroll batch has been started? Just like any other Cougar Mountain module, once you add the employee to the grid in the current batch, it automatically processes their paycheck with the information that it currently has. That paycheck does not change if you change the pay rate in the employee master file. You would have to delete that paycheck out of the current batch. Then you can change that employee's pay rate and then add that employee back into the current batch with the new information. Or you can simply edit the current check itself rather than editing the, of course it doesn't let you edit the pay rate unless it's a variable rate. So you would have to change the actual employee's pay rate in the master file. But this check that we're looking at right here has already been entered into the current batch with this current rate. So if you needed to change that rate, it would not allow you to do it in the current check. You'd have to delete this check here just by clicking on the header information and reset. Or just right-click on the file here and delete that row. That deletes the check. Then you can add that employee to the grid after you've updated their pay rate information. Yes, George, to answer your questions about changing deductions once the payroll is started, yes, it's the same process. Because once you add those checks to the current grid, it automatically processes that check. You would have to delete the check before making those changes. Couple of questions about PDF Blaster. I'm going to have to get some answers for you on that, and we'll post that on the grid. I believe it does work in Denali Payroll just like it does in the other modules, but I will confirm that, and I'll get that answer posted for you guys on the PDF Blaster questions there. Okay, a good question from Roger. Can I get a breakdown of regular hours, overtime hours, sick leave, and vacation on a report? Yeah, you're going to see that on the edit report when you process payroll. When you're verifying accuracy on the next step as we go through here, this is your edit report. You'll see that information on the edit report for that particular batch of payrolls. You can also see your benefit deduction reports for that, but as far as sick leave and vacation, you're going to see that on your edit report here. Or next week in our payroll, we're going to talk more about the payroll reports, the history reports, the transaction reports, the benefit deduction reports, that's in the payroll history of the batches already posted. But in the current batch, you'll see that right here in this column over here. You've got your holiday pay, other pay, PTO, sick and vacation pay, other additions or additions to gross here in the edit report for this particular paycheck. Okay, Roger, on the edit screen, how do I add additional pay in dollars? Very good question. We'll bring up our edit screen here, and I'll show you how to do that real quick. If you've got an employee that's on an hourly rate, that you've got their pay automatically calculated based on their hourly rate or their salary rate, either one, so you can't change the pay rate here, the pay amount. If you want to just add additional dollars to their pay, this is done right here in the additions to gross box. You can go ahead and add additional dollar amounts in addition to what their regular hourly rate calculated here. And this will also be taxed unless you told Denali Payroll to shelter the additions to gross for this employee, which is an option in the employee setup. But this will automatically calculate the taxes on what you add here. This is actually very good for adding bonus pay to employees' paychecks if they get like a bonus on this particular check if needed. Okay, let's see if I can do that for you, Dick, real quick. Let's see if I can find one that has a PTO and vacation. I don't know if I have any of them. Okay, here we have one that has PTO units and then holiday leave units. There's a separate example there. So if they did 8 hours of PTO, you would add it there, and then you would deduct it off of their regular pay up here. So you'd edit it that way. That's how you would change it from regular to PTO if they took a day off and you're paying them paid time off for that. Or if they had vacation set up in their employee master file, you would see a vacation option here as well. This employee doesn't have vacation. All they have is PTO and holiday leave. So you would also see a line item for vacation as well in here if they had that set up. Good comment there from Roger. How about a total in each of the boxes in the payroll edit report? That is a good idea, and I will pass that on to see if we can't get that added in a future update if we have enough requests for that. So. Okay, who assigns the direct deposit check numbers? That is an automatic number assigned by Denali Payroll. That is something that's just built into the Denali system. Reference. All right, and that direct deposit number, basically what that is that's just the reference number that's posted through to the audit trail. It just assigns that as the direct deposit check number for you, just for that batch. All right, I've only got time for a couple more questions here, so I'll try to wrap this up as quick as I can. Good question from Susan. What information appears on the employee's check stub? Is this something we have to customize? Unfortunately, I can't show you guys what the check stub looks like because it doesn't allow me to show the screen on that. However, you can customize the check stub if you have crystal reports. Just like any other report that you can customize, if you go into crystal reports, you can customize the way that check stub prints and the way it looks. But it's similar to what you saw on the EDIT report. That's what you're going to see on their check stub. Similar, it'll show basically their different pay rates. If they have other pay, such as overtime pay, it'll show that on there. They'll show the hours, the rate, and the total. And then it has a year-to-date column as well on the stub. And then you have all of your different deductions, your tax deductions, and your benefits deductions as well. That's the information you see on the check stub. But that layout, the check stub layout, again, it is customizable if you have Crystal Reports installed. You can open that check layout format in Crystal Reports and edit that format to print however you want it to print on your check stubs. All right, another question from George. Is there a report or equivalent employee report for Obamacare? Good question, George. You have your benefit deduction report, and if you have the Obamacare set up, the benefit and or deduction, as like a health care benefit or deduction, that'll just be included in your benefit deduction reports. Specifically for Obamacare, that just depends on how you set it up in the Denali Payroll under the benefit deduction codes. If you want to call that code Obamacare, that is something you can do, and it'll show up that way on the report if you do that. So yeah, that is a way you can have that show up on the report. Okay, so another comment here from Dick. You're wondering if there's a way to enter vacation sick time on a separate transaction, basically is how I'm understanding that, not editing the current transaction. Right now in Denali Payroll, there's not a way to do that yet, but that is coming in an upcoming release of Payroll, where you can enter adjusting entries to add additional transactions as needed to adjust the current employee's history file, or to create a special transaction just for that employee. However, with the current release, you can add one employee to the grid, and then you can edit the employee's information, take off all of their units, and just put in PTO units only. That would be one way to do that in the current payroll release that we currently have. All right, and with that, I think we have just run out of time here. We've got some other appointments coming up here, so we're going to have to end our session today. I know there's some of you that wanted me to show some additional demonstrations on how to do certain things in the payroll. What I would recommend on that is either open a support ticket or contact your sales rep. They can actually show you and demonstrate to you on how some of these functions work. So go ahead and give them a call. And any questions that I didn't get to, or even the ones I did get to, we'll go ahead and post the answers to these questions up with the webinar posting that we have set up for you here. So with that, we'll go ahead and close out the webinar for today. Be sure to join us again next week. We've got some additional webinars we're doing. We've got 2 left to finish up the payroll, the Denali Payroll. The next 2 webinars we're going to be focusing on reports. There's also a feature where you can void a paycheck that's already posted. I'll be sure to cover that next week as well. And then we'll be focusing on our payroll reports. On our final webinar, we're going to take a little bit of a deviation from the payroll and go into the inventory module, because with this latest release of Denali 4.0, we've added lot numbers to our inventory that you can add as a tracking device. So we're going to go ahead and review that as well on the webinar on April 30th for those who are interested. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to give us a call, or you can send in your emails. You can always contact your sales rep as well if you have any questions answered.